Hi, I'm going to do a walkthrough today of the basic layout and the components of my Honda del Sol electric car conversion for EV album. I've had a couple of people out of state ask for a little bit more detail and maybe just a walkthrough video, so here we go. This is being taken on an iPhone, so hopefully the video quality isn't too horrible, and I'll keep moving some lights around as I get around to it. Okay, now we have a little bit more light under the hood so we can see. Okay, so let's get down here and start again with the motor. So we have an HP EVS AC50 three-phase AC motor driving the car. Attached to that motor, or driving the motor, is a Curtis 1238 7601 controller. That's the 650 amp model that many of the EV part suppliers sell as kind of a motor controller combination pack. For this weight car, which right now is sitting at about 2,500 pounds, is a really, really nice system. There's pretty good acceleration, pretty good get up and go. Anything heavier than 2,500 pounds, you know, it's probably going to feel a little sluggish, but at this weight of a vehicle, it's quite a nice little drivetrain. I also really like that you get regenerative braking with the system. So let me go back over in here if I can get away from the shadows. So we've got the motor mated to the transmission with the nice red Canadian Electric Vehicles catalog motor adapter. I think this is for Honda B series, I want to say, transmissions. Don't quote me on that. I might be totally off base, but so this system retains the original clutch. It was an original 5-speed manual transmission. I still have, the original 5-speed transmission. So everything works and shifts differently, but with the same gear ratios and everything as the original car. Sitting on top of the motor on a couple of brackets is, let me get the shadows out of the way, an Elcon PFC 2500 charger. This charger charges at 120 volts or 240 volts, I guess 110, 220. I've got the outlet in the garage wired up. Go over here to charge me or to provide 220 volt power. This is just sort of scabbed off of my hot water heater, which is just on the other side of the wall from the garage. But that's what I'm using for my daily charging is the 220 volts. Circuit into that charger, and with that charger at 220 volts, you really kind of, or at least I'm putting about 10 miles of range back into the batteries for every hour of charging, which is not bad. The car was designed with about I was trying to get between 50 and 60 miles range, and that's kind of what it's doing. I've been as far as 65 miles on the freeway, pretty much continuous freeway driving, and that pretty much puts the pack more or less right at empty. So 50 miles is sort of a good, safe, anytime range where I can get away without really sort of draining the pack down too low. So down at the bottom, I guess you can still get out of the shadows. Motor controller is actually sitting where the AC, the air conditioning compressor was before. I think, and right next to that is a front pack of 6 batteries, and that 6-pack is pretty much sitting right where the radiator assembly was before. So those are both down in here. I guess you probably can't even see in there, but they're pretty much doing a good job of blocking the airflow that used to come in for the radiators. The controller is on a big piece of industrial IGBT heatsink. It has about 2-inch fins on it, and about 3/8 inch thick here in the back, and so it's just mounted right on top of that to provide plenty of free air cooling. Next to the charger and right above the transmission is a little electrical box where I've kind of confined all my high voltage distribution. There's 4 main fuses in there. that go to the charger, the heater core, and the two DC-DC converters. And then there's, a pack voltage, positive distribution block and negative distribution block. I think the positive distribution block is over there and the negative one's over there. It's kind of hard to see in there. It's a bit of a rat's nest of wires, but at least it's all contained in a nice box. Sitting next to that is two DC-DC converters. One is on all the time. The other one is only on when the key switch is in the accessory position, I believe. So, or maybe the on position. But so those each of them provides 400 watts of power, so 800 watts total when the car is on and running. They actually tie right in to the original main fuse box, and you can see right here, there, right where the battery used to go in one input, and the alternator came in another, I believe, and then two ground wires are going right there. So really from that point on, the original 12 volt power distribution in the car is maintained. Down over inside there is also a huge Ferrari Shamet. I think that's a AQ 3500 or something. It's 300 volt, 500 amp fast acting fuse. That sort of breaks, or that sort of separates the pack in the rear to the pack in the front. Sitting kind of on top of, well, I don't know, the motor mount and the rest butted up against the firewall is another group of batteries. There's, what do I have there? 17 batteries in this group, 5, 10, 14, yeah, 17. Those are just sitting on a tray. And there's an aftermarket strut tower bar that I bought and is actually supporting the tray in 5 different locations. The tray itself is just, I don't know, I think 1/4 inch thick aluminum. I don't know if I can even get a picture of that down there, but it does a pretty good job of supporting those batteries, and pulling it up to this strut mount bar really, I think, helped. Throttle is about the last main component over here, and that is a nice little Hall effect throttle from, oh man, who's the man down in Utah that does that? Let's see if I have that written down anywhere. Yeah, I can't remember. But it's a nice little Hall effect throttle, and it's attached to the original throttle cable, which again goes to the pedal. I looked at sort of putting just a Hall effect pedal in, but I was a little bit uncertain about actually pulling the pedal assembly, because it seemed like the pedal and the brake were sort of part of the same original housing. I have another meter over here. I just actually finished this thing a couple of weeks ago. Let's turn it on. That sort of shows me pack voltage all the time, which is actually kind of nice. I just actually turned the master disconnect switch back on to put power into the system again. That's just a Blue Sea Systems 600 or 500 amp. Let me see if I can read off of there. 600 amp switch. That's just my main service switch, and it's sort of attached to the front of the charger. 24 volt coil for the Curtis is down there. I don't even think you can see it. Oh yeah, there it is down there, right in the middle of the picture. This little circuit, though, is actually kind of nice. There's actually a contactor in the bottom of that of this box, and 12 volt coming from the main car, and pack voltage coming in to be read. This is one of those JLD meters from lightobjects.com. It has a couple of relays built in, and I'm using one of those relays to actually monitor the charger. I haven't had, this has been running for about 1.5 years now, this car. I haven't had any problems with the charger. The charger has just done a fantastic job, but I don't really like single points of failure. So this circuit, the charger output goes through this contactor in that box, which is actually a normally closed contactor. So without any power applied, it's just passing the current, and the current goes through that circuit right on through. The relays on this little meter are programmed to trip at 126.5 volts, I think. So if for whatever reason the charger sticks, something happens, the programming inside the charger gets reset. It doesn't really matter. This is sort of a watching circuit, and if it feels or if it senses that the pack voltage is getting higher than I want, it will disconnect power to the charger and shut off the charging to protect the battery pack. The batteries themselves are China Aviation Lithium Battery Corporation SE series 130 amp hour cells. The new CA series cells sound like they're a vast improvement over this generation of batteries, but these are still great batteries and great cells. They're all strapped together with the, I guess, included, I think these all came from Calb battery straps with Nordlock washers on the bolts to help keep them intact. There's my front 6-pack right there. So again, there's 17 cells up there, 6 cells here, and 13 cells in the trunk for a total of 36 cells. My pack right now, I think my amp hour counter, I'll show you that in a minute, that's inside the cabin, is showing about close to half of my available charge gone, and my pack voltage is 118.5. It usually starts out about 120, a little over 120 volts, and empty, it'll go down there pretty low. If I've done a really big drive, I'm down about 110 volts or something like that. But that's kind of under the hood, and I'll go and show you instrumentation in just a sec. Okay, here inside the cabin is the main instrument cluster. As you can see, there's really nothing different from the stock gauges, and that's by design. I kind of didn't really want to mar up the cabin at all with a bunch of extra gauges, and I'm using a nice little device from Australia. I believe it's Australia. The what's it called? Is it the EV Works Ziva 2 fuel gauge driver? That's a great little box. I'll show you back in a second, but it's in my my high voltage distribution box. And all that gauge really does is give me a couple of signals. It ties into the tachometer and repurposes that to show me instantaneous amperage. So instead of thousands of RPM, that Ziva 2 instrument is now making my tach show me hundreds of amps. So this is great. I mean, the system is a 650 amp system. It does, I think, about 670, 680, somewhere around there amps, instantaneous max. So I have sort of full range on that tachometer. And the fuel gauge has been repurposed to show me kind of the state of charge. As I charge the car up, the fuel gauge obviously goes to full, and as I start driving, it empties itself out down to empty. And that's all sort of adjustable by little pots on this Ziva device. But it does a really nice job of giving me a general idea of where I stand capacity-wise. If you look right now, it is pretty much at half full, half empty. And on my trip meter, it's showing me I've put about 30.6 miles since I last reset it. Every time I charge, I reset the trip meter, and the fuel gauge goes up. So that's all the instrumentation I have. So back under the hood, the main negative from my battery pack, which is right here, that just snakes through this high voltage distribution box over to my main pack cutoff switch. As it goes through that box, the only reason it really snakes through there is so it can go through this Hall effect sensor, the Ziva 2 fuel gauge, which you kind of see in blue down inside the box. And that's where it actually picks up the current, and that's the little device. It's really small. There's a mess of wires in there, as you can see, but there's really not to that. much to that device. It's just a small board with that Hall effect sensor on there, and that picks up the current, and that wires back into the main instrument cluster to drive the tachometer and the fuel gauge. Besides that, under the hood, there's really, well, nothing else to speak of. During all the fabrication, I don't think I drilled any holes or cut any metal from the original car. I was just able to repurpose all of the existing threaded holes in the frame and throughout the structure. And, that's kind of, some things are packed pretty tight, but by and large, it all went together pretty well. And we'll move around to the trunk, and I will show you the battery box back there. So inside the trunk is the remaining 13 cells of my battery pack. This is just aluminum framed and sort of sheet box that's just riveted together with aircraft rivets, and a couple of turnbuckles that bolt into the shock mount, a position on the shock mount to kind of keep it from flapping up. There was a couple of pre-drilled holes in the wall of the back of the trunk that's used to bolt that frame in, so it's in there pretty good. And there's a nice acrylic sort of U-shaped top that just sits there and rides over the top of the battery boxes to keep it hand safe. But it only takes up about 7 inches of depth in the trunk, and there's still plenty of room to get the target top onto the nice target top trunk lift thing, which is really handy in the summer for the 1 or 2 days that you really want to take the top off in Washington. And other than that, there's still plenty of trunk room in there. It's not bad at all as far as free space. And again, I think the gross vehicular weight of this car was somewhere right around just a shade under 3,000 pounds. So at 2,500 pounds curb weight now, there's still plenty of capacity left in here. So that's it. That's the walk through the car, and thanks for watching. Bye.